The lunch rush was brutal. Emma wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, serving tacos as fast as her little food truck could manage. She barely noticed the line anymore, just faces, hungry eyes, and hands exchanging bills for warm plates. Then she felt it, someone lingering. A tall man in a crisp suit stood patiently at the very back, phone tucked away, not complaining like the others. Emma almost admired that. But she didn't have time for admiration. "Next," she called, moving on without a glance. When he finally reached the window, Emma barely looked up. "What'll it be?" A low voice answered, calm but strangely familiar. "Still remember me?" Her head snapped up. Those eyes. That smile. It wasn't just some businessman. It was Daniel, the quiet boy who used to sit next to her in high school, always sketching in his notebook, always too shy to speak up. Emma blinked. "Daniel? What are you doing here?" He chuckled. "Grabbing lunch. Supporting an old friend." Then he slid $100 bill across the counter. "And paying for everyone behind me." Emma's throat tightened as she watched him wave off protests from the crowd. She had been running on fumes, doubting her little truck's future. But in that instant, hope returned. She realized kindness didn't always come from strangers. It often came full circle. And sometimes, the quietest people carried the loudest impact. Emma smiled through misty eyes. "Guess I remember you now." The food truck rattled with the rhythm of lunch hour chaos. Emma's hands moved like clockwork. Scoop, fold, wrap, serve. She was tired, but she couldn't afford to slow down. Bills didn't wait. At the very end of the line, a tall man in an immaculate suit stood quietly. No phone in hand, no impatient sighs, just watching. Emma barely noticed him. She had too many mouths to feed. "Next," she called, sliding another taco through the window. When he finally stepped forward, Emma didn't glance up. "What'll it be?" The man's voice was low, calm, and strangely familiar. "Still remember me?" Emma froze. Slowly she looked up, and her breath caught. It was Daniel. The boy from high school who used to sketch superheroes at the back of class, the one she'd shared notes with, the one who had disappeared without a goodbye. "Daniel?" she whispered. "You." He smiled. "Made it out, I guess. But I never forgot the girl who offered me her last sandwich when I couldn't afford lunch." He slipped $100 bill across the counter. "Keep the change. And everyone behind me? Lunch is on me too." Gasps rose from the line, but Daniel only shrugged, his eyes warm. Emma's chest tightened. For years, she'd wondered if kindness made any difference in the world. Now, the answer was standing in front of her. Her eyes shimmered as she whispered, "I guess you remembered me more than I thought." Daniel leaned closer. "Some debts of kindness never fade." And just like that, Emma realized her food truck wasn't just feeding stomachs. It was feeding stories of hope. Emma's food truck was her lifeline, though some days it felt more like a sinking ship. The generator coughed, the fryer sputtered, and she hadn't paid herself in weeks. Still, she showed up. People needed to eat. That day, the line stretched down the block. Near the back stood a man who didn't fit, sharp suit, polished shoes, calm patience while others checked watches and complained. Emma didn't notice him until he finally reached the window. "Order?" she asked flatly, too weary for small talk. The man leaned closer, voice gentle. "Still remember me?" Emma blinked. His eyes. That smile. Suddenly she was 17 again, lending her math notes to Daniel, the quiet kid everyone overlooked. The same boy she once shared her lunch with because he couldn't afford his own. Her throat tightened. "Daniel? What happened to you?" "I built a company," he said simply, then slid a crisp 100 across the counter. "But I wouldn't have made it without people like you. Lunch is on me, for everyone." The crowd gasped. Emma's hands trembled as she tried to process it. She had doubted herself, doubted this truck, doubted whether small acts mattered. But here was living proof. Emma's eyes filled. "I never thought you'd even remember." Daniel smiled. When someone feeds you in your lowest moment, you never forget. The line erupted in cheers, but Emma just stood there, overwhelmed. She had thought she was only serving tacos. Turns out, she'd been serving hope all along. By noon, Emma was running on fumes. Her truck smelled of spices and grease, but all she could feel was exhaustion. The rent on the lot was due, the fridge barely worked, and she wasn't sure how long she could keep this dream alive. Then she saw him, or rather, she didn't. At the very end of the line, a tall man waited silently. She ignored him like every other customer. "Next!" she barked, handing off burritos with a forced smile. Finally, he stepped up. She didn't look. "What'll it be? Still remember me?" The words cut through the clatter like music. Emma glanced up, stunned. It was Daniel, the boy she once knew from high school, the boy who never had money for lunch, but always drew superheroes on his binder. She used to slip him sandwiches, quietly, so no one would notice. Her heart skipped. "Daniel? But you—" "I made it," he said softly. "But I never forgot who helped me survive." He laid $100 bill on the counter. "Feed everyone behind me." Emma's lip trembled. The man who once couldn't afford food was now feeding dozens. The tables had turned, yet the gratitude remained. She realized that every sacrifice she'd made, every hour she worked, every struggle to keep this truck running, mattered more than she knew. With tears she whispered, "I was just being kind." Daniel shook his head. "And kindness can change a life." For the first time in weeks, Emma's hope felt stronger than her doubts. The lunch rush was merciless. Emma's tiny food truck was slammed, workers in suits, students with earbuds, delivery drivers in a hurry. She barely looked at faces anymore. Orders in, orders out. Survival mode. But one customer stood out, not because of impatience, but because of patience. A man in a sleek suit stood quietly at the end of the line, hands in his pockets, watching. Emma didn't have time for curiosity. When he finally stepped up, she asked automatically, "What'll it be?" He leaned forward slightly. "Still remember me?" Emma frowned, then froze. His voice tugged at something buried deep. She looked up, and recognition hit. Daniel. The boy from her old neighborhood. The kid who used to borrow her pencils and sometimes her sandwiches. The one who disappeared after graduation. Her chest tightened. "Daniel? You look different." "I should," he chuckled. "Turns out companies don't build themselves. But I never forgot the girl who shared food when I had none." He pulled out $100 bill. "Everyone behind me eats free today." The line erupted in surprise. Emma's eyes burned. She had been second-guessing this truck, questioning if it was worth the grind. Yet here was proof that her kindness, years ago, had mattered more than she ever knew. As she handed him his tacos, her voice cracked. "I didn't think you'd even remember me." Daniel smiled. "When someone feeds your hunger, you never forget their face." Emma exhaled, realizing she wasn't just running a food truck. She was running a vessel of kindness, and kindness had a way of finding its way back. The line outside Emma's food truck stretched down the block. Her arms ached, her apron was stained, and her spirit was worn thin. But she kept going. If she stopped, she might never start again. Among the crowd, one man stood apart. Tall. Composed. A tailored suit amid worn hoodies and work uniforms. He didn't fidget or check his watch. He just waited. Finally, he stepped forward. Emma didn't look up. "What'll it be?" His voice was quiet, almost intimate. "Still remember me?" Emma froze, the spatula slipping from her hand. Slowly, she lifted her gaze. Her breath caught. It was Daniel. The boy from high school who always sketched in silence, who sometimes came to class hungry. The boy she'd once given her last sandwich to without a second thought. "Daniel?" she whispered, disbelief heavy in her voice. He nodded. "You fed me when I had nothing. Now it's my turn." He placed the $100 bill on the counter. "Feed them all." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Emma only heard the pounding of her own heart. She had been drowning in doubt, wondering if her food truck dream was foolish. Yet here stood living proof that kindness echoed across years, changing lives in ways she could never imagine. Tears welled in her eyes. "I just wanted to help." Daniel smiled softly. "And you did more than you'll ever know." Emma looked at the line of grateful faces, then back at Daniel. For the first time in a long while, she felt something stronger than exhaustion. She felt hope.